interested in Moorish studies. But I was looking for my birth certificate, so I had to call to New York, so I could get my birth certificate, Social Security card. So at the time, my poppy sent me down a Moorish Empire birth certificate and a paper on the back stating basically that this is for identification purposes only, not to be put into any commercial transaction. And I really didn't understand what it means until I started getting interested more in the studies. So basically, I'm just really want to know where I'm at now with it, like the step where I'm at now, like where do I go from there?
Yeah, good. All right. Questions are always in order. That's number one. Number two, to be straightforward with you, you have to study. The fundamentals is knowing yourself. And logically, a lot of times when people get this information, because it's not what you're hearing every day, it may appear to be confusing to you sometimes, or indeed you do have to study, but it may appear off from you. That's because you're not on yourself. Do you understand? You will learn that and you will begin to comprehend that later on. Logically, because you're young, there's a lot of, as the generations pass, more and more what you call reference points are lost. And therefore, lacking reference points, you don't know how to necessarily evaluate what's going on. Certain things that are going on relative to paperwork that may be issued by any organized order or group of Moors is due to the fact that you have been under what you call colonial operations. In other words, you're under European colonial occupation. This must be understood and comprehended. And a lot of people, it's sort of like people experience it every day, but many of our people are not cognizant of that. Even a lot of conscious people don't think on that point, and therefore their concepts may be wrong or misguided. It's not about hostility, it's about correcting a wrong, a horrible wrong. However, information has to be dispensed in order to kind of like purge you from misperceptions. At the same time, information is being presented to you to kind of protect you from those on both sides of the nation who are trying to put you back into servitude. Your concept of it may be, doesn't have to be. The predisposed misuse of the word racism. Race is the species, but it's a term that is used to imply the oppression that our people experience. That oppression actually is the Christian Black Codes of 1724 and the Secret Treaty of Verona and the Inquisition operations of European occupation in the Western Hemisphere. That's what's really going on. The Secret Treaty of Verona. Yeah. Let me write that down. Many of you know this, but I'm going to share it because I see a lot of new faces. Islam family. Islam family. And this is to bring you up to snuff so that you can understand other information. Meaning that for a lot of this information to make sense to you, you have to have a fundamental understanding of world history and a little bit of law. It is good and better that you know more law, but you must know them together.
Yes, sir.
Like say, for instance, if someone's presenting, introducing you to a race, a rally, a race, say tomorrow we're going to pen relays and you want to race, right? And so you decide you don't like your sneaks. So you take one sneak off because you don't like the way that one looked. You know what I mean? It will hinder you in the race most likely. Then if you like hopping and skipping and jumping and you want to tie one leg and go into the race, people might be impressed with what you do with one leg, but most likely you're not going to win. Are we clear? Likewise, if you don't know law and history together, just like the two legs, which is what should be taught to our people, you are at a severe social, economic, and political and spiritual disadvantage. This is what is called bureaucratized slavery.
Yes, sir.
Particularly it was done with the, effectively with the 14th Amendment, and of course, misinformation, of course, with the Christians burning books for over 300 years to bring the darkness that we're experiencing today. which makes this information necessary to be dispensed to people who have not been privy to it, because basically the real history and law has been preserved only for persons in what you call elite position, or what is called privy council. Privy council may include different levels of skull and bones, different levels of masonry, different levels of Knights Templar, Columbus, DAR, those American Revolution, Knights of Malta, Grand Sheiks, Sheikesses, potentates, all of them in secret, for the most part, wear the Moorish fez in their rituals because you're standing on Morocco. Now, logically, most people don't know the real history, so they think that the U.S. corporation is the land. It's not. It's an occupying government. Do you understand? And it is a private religious corporation belonging to the Jesuits of Rome. This is one of the reasons why it's hard for our people to kind of wrap their head around this information when they get it, because they don't know the difference between corpse, and real beings. Essentially, what was constructed by the priesthood, by the dark priesthood, is the creation of a corpse to slay the living. I'm telling you the truth.
Wow.
The corpse to slay the living is the 14th Amendment, which they constructed after they closed the Freedmen's Bureau in 1868. And it is the principle, it is not unlike the creation of a Frankenstein in a sense. And so the 14th Amendment created what is called the artificial person, or the entity principle. The entity principle, straw man, artificial person, all are constructed via the 14th Amendment in 1868. Now, when you, how many of you read Noble Drawley's Divine Warning by the Prophet for the Nations? You read it? Most people should read it. Now, logically, your father shared that with you?
No, that's one of your books, right?
No. That's the prophet. That may be in some of my books,
Yeah.
but that's only for instructional purposes. Prophet Noble Drawley wrote that and presented it to our people for the purpose of resurrecting them and giving you what you call key adeptus points for you to do research on to raise your degrees. Meaning that certain things were written knowing that the people, basically in the state that they were in, would not totally accept at the time, because our people have been smoked, which means, you know, you've been totally under a European psychology. Now, someone who's in psychology suffering what is called disassociation does not immediately connect to things that they should by nature connect to. Not unlike if you remove a child from his mother and someone else raises a child, even if they're abusing the child has a tendency when it meets his mother not to recognize her and not to feel the love or the compassion that the mother feels for the child that she feels has been pulled from her. Likewise, so it is with us as a people, with our relationship to our naval, our cord, our mother. Do you understand? Our nation. So therefore, usually when someone introduces us back to our mother, we speak of the mother from a third-party perspective. You know, those Moors, you know, my dad's a Moor, like it's some kind of belief system. Like it's some kind of, like he become a roller skater. My father's a roller skater, you know, when that's your bloodline. And so that bridge must be crossed for the concepts of how to receive this information to be properly disseminated in the pockets of your mind, in the chambers of your mind, to actually wash you, or to what you call baptize you, because you must be purged. But someone can say that to you, but you can't appreciate it until you do it, until you get involved, because you're disconnected. When I say you, I'm always talking plural. Keep in mind when I say you, that's plural. You're disconnected. In psychology, it's called disassociation. It is a design. It wasn't accidental. That's where you sever people from those things that are vital to them. It's like one of the strategies that the Europeans used in the 1800s, 1700s and 1800s in order to bureaucratize servitude was they would take us from different parts of the land and send us across the country on another part of the land. And that strategy they use even today in the military. to disassociate people from their families, you know, so if they get longing or something like that, after a while they forget because they get hopeless that they're not going to get there. Do you understand? Likewise, they break off what you call reference points. This is one of the reasons why the Europeans use the psychological psychic attacks, which they're called, where they remove the names of the people, or they would call you only by one name, and then if you were using another name, he would put his family name on you, so that whatever you would buy or sell in society would automatically belong to the corporate state. But you wouldn't know that if you didn't know law. Meanwhile, as the generations passed, you actually work your way into poverty because you have no estate. Now, logically, a person who doesn't know law and process wouldn't recognize the strategy that was used. They would just look at it as a historical flaw when it actually has a legal implication. Actually kills the status of the being. Do you understand what I'm saying? And now, persons who don't know law don't know that status and estate are equals in law. This is why our people never develop in general what is called old money. You hear the term old money?
Yeah.
That's why we generally never develop what you call old money, even if you have hard workers in their families. Like most of you can, you know, maybe your age, maybe those my age, and those maybe a generation after me can remember, you know, grandmom's or uncle Rube's estate as an example for myself. Are anybody familiar with New Jersey, Camden, Cherry Hill area? All right, now my family, the land, like in Pennsauken, like on Park Avenue where that high school is, that used to be my Uncle Rube's farm, that whole area. And my family's land was from there, from Merchantville, Pennsauken to Cherry Hill to where the racetrack used to be. Where they now have a depot and all that on 70. All of that land was my family's land. All of us should be wealthy. Over the generations it was stolen. And most of you have stories like that. Do you understand? But at the same time, most of you don't know that we're the people of the land. And we're not Indians, although they call us that. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And so after generations of generations, after a while, our people lose a cognizance of who they are, their connection to the land. They develop what you call a subordinate and an inferior mentality. They own nothing, so therefore there's no connection. You understand? And after a few generations, they just, like you see many of the young brothers and sisters now, most of them don't necessarily project their lives as if they're going to live past 30, because they have nothing to connect to. And then the parents being broken spiritually, all they do is build churches and bars. Do you understand? Not knowing that the codes to destroy their family came directly from the church, with the Christian Black Codes of 1722. And they themselves are the greatest defenders of their own enslavement and don't even know it, because they think the church and Jesus are unions, when the one they call Jesus had nothing to do with the church. Not only that, Jesus is a password. There's no J in Hebrew. The letter J wasn't even used in language until the 1500s. And so you can see that most of our people are not only miseducated, they're emotionally broken and think they know stuff. They don't know nothing about anything, for the most part. And then the self-righteousness which is taught to them gives them the superior attitude that they know God, Jesus, Allah, Muhammad better than everybody else, and God made them, didn't make anybody else, they're saved. Meanwhile, their babies are dying younger and younger on the street, their families are tore up, they control nothing, but they're saved, which is the extremest level of hypocrisy that the world has ever known. However, they won't release that either. So it's because they're suffering disassociation. They're sick. And you can't tell them that they're sick, because they think that you're taking a superior position, which is not the truth. Because we're all sick, if you get the point. And we need to fix this. But you can't fix things if you don't know what's really wrong. And then the other pattern is that our training has been, for the most part, to deal with symptoms and not the root of problems. Therefore, we must go back to the principles of our ancient Moorish mothers and fathers to begin to change the concepts that we have about ourselves, to understand the dynamics that takes place with us in everyday affairs, including with our own so-called leadership, some of who are sellouts. But you can't know that unless you know history and law. Meaning that if someone shows you compassion, someone shows that they care for you, something like that, logically, you know, because everybody wants to be loved, everybody wants to be liked. You know, and you can often think, you know, they got your best interest in heart. Just like, say, for instance, we could have a black rally, right? And somebody can get down, you know, yeah, man, what we really want to talk about is what they did to the black man. And everybody, you know, gathers around him and everything, don't even know that he's sealing their fate. As soon as they agree to be black man, they agree to be Christian property under the 14th Amendment, registered right here in the state of Delaware, because they don't know law, they don't know the word is a tag. They think it's an identity of Afrocentricity. And if you tell them anything contrary to that, they're ready to fight you because they think you're not a believer. I'm serious. So we have a horrible situation going on here, trying to educate people who don't respect knowledge because they've been treated to reject knowledge. You get the point, even though their forefathers were the founders of the principles and the institutions on the planet that preserved the knowledge. In other words, we're the direct descendants of the founders of civilization and have fallen the lowest. And then don't know it. And then when the information is presented, they look at it as a belief system or an opinion. So they don't know how to separate opinions from realities. They're like plugged in a false matrix. And if you pull the plug on them, they want to fight you. Now, so what do you do when there's somebody you love? It's a difficult situation. You know, and so it makes it easy for the Europeans to mistreat them because he's their God. Keep in mind, our people have pride. Anyone, like they say, just say for instance, if you have a vehicle out there that's not running, and you're a mechanic, and someone is charging you, you know, to fix the vehicle, you will approach it from the fact of the mathematics and the engineering, not from emotional, that they like their car. Don't lean on the fender, you know, that one thing ain't running, ain't going nowhere. You know, fix the engine, but don't lean on the fender. Yeah, what kind of lean on the fender? You know, you don't deal with that, you deal with what's happening. Does it have gas? Does it have fuel? Tires are up. Is the engine running? Does it have ignition? Do you understand what I'm saying to you? You look at the systems, and you would deal with it from an engineering perspective. When it comes to our problems, our people have a tendency to approach it with their emotions and not with the engineering principle. You see the point? Not logistically. And that's part of the training. So again, Islam, again, it makes it kind of difficult, you know, and so you have to kind of get over that hurdle for other information to make sense to them. Meanwhile, when you bring people together like this, you have people on different degrees. You have people that are neophytes, you have people who are scholars, then you have people who are masters. Then you bring them all together and you got to try to make it interesting for everybody so that, because someone who already knows this stuff is going to get bored because they've heard it. And when you deal with fundamental truths, there is no such thing as versions, so you can't keep dressing it up because if you do, you start becoming false. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And people are used to versions of things and they expect versions. No, the truth is what it is. It's no version. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And then you have a lot of people that get this information and try to make versions out of it, which starts making confusion again. So you've got all of these dynamics of social development that you have to be a thinker and have the capacity to overcome to still try to reach the target to bring them up. At the same time, when there's so many feeders on them, they don't know that these people are vampires. From the priesthood right on down. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And as an example, most of you who hear the cover story about Malik, of Malcolm X, you have a general view of Malcolm X based on what is presented to you in the news, right? But those who are in the inner circles know better that that's an appearance, but not the real motives of them murdering him. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And it's like anything else. What the masses know and what those in the circle know are two different things. But usually what is known in the inner circles is never usually strongly out in the public, even though some people know, but they're usually more silent or more shut down a little bit because there's people around them that would want them dead for telling the truth. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? The real reason they murdered Malcolm because he found this information out. Do you understand what I'm saying? About nationality. And it was actually a French Muslim who schooled him, who he would, in another mentality, call a white devil type thing. Do you understand? And find out Islam's a creed, not a nation. Hey, wow, whoa. There's a lot of little stuff, you know. And then find out that the foundation of the information and the order came out from the Moorish movement with a great sellout that took place in the late 20s, including a lot of other organizations who took a few pieces of silver to take our people back into the black codes. But inspire them, and it looks like they're helping you, and they're actually enslaving you. But you can't tell people that just on the surface, can you? Unless they know law and history, because then they'll take it emotional and attack you, thinking that you're trying to hurt them, or that you're trying to compete with somebody that they love, that they admire, that they think is honorable. And it is not always what you think it is. You know, so some things that need to be said are not said because people won't say them for their own safety. But meaning that our people have been the bread and butter for a lot of people to their own injury, and it's difficult to raise them out from under servitude, because like Harriet Tubman said, one of the most difficult things to do is to free a slave who don't know they're a slave. You know, because meaning that they will fight you. So the slave master ain't got to do nothing. You stand back and laugh at both of you. You know, just like Woodrow Wilson said to Noble Raleigh in the 20s, when he told them to pull the flag out and put the star back in the flag, he says, sure, you can do it. He said, but giving Islam back to these niggas will be like putting a pair of pants on a horse. And if you can, I'll back you with my Army and Navy. And of course, when he got millions, then they infiltrated the movement. And this is when you got all the schisms in the Moorish Science Temple that nobody talks about. They talk about the great sellout, but they won't go into the details. You understand? Same thing with them having a CIA man next to Marcus Garvey to undermine him, to get him out, because he was teaching government. Get the point? I mean, it goes on and on and on. But once you understand, rather than just talk about the negatives that were done to us, once you begin to understand what is done, what you must do is think of intelligent strategies, both in what you call verbal and written form, to counter what Rome is doing. And when most of the people don't even know that Rome is doing this stuff to you, that's the secret treaty of Rome. Do you understand? They don't know the politics. The politics of North America and the world is the secret treaty of Rome. You know, and so just like, for instance, like if we were having a serious discussion about so-called slavery, and that's connotative used, you know, because slavery actually derived from Slovakians. It's really a nationality. It's not, you know, the connotative meaning of given to forced servitude that it is. It's just used loosely, so that's connotative. It's not denotative. When you're looking at the dynamics of what took place in North America with slavery as an example, you would say, well, we were enslaved by the Europeans, and then you call them white people, say it as an example. Not knowing that as soon as you call them white people, you just call them a sovereign. And that's because you didn't know language. And that everything is not what you think it means. It's a legal caste order. It is actually a status position. And of course, if you say that, then that means you project it, so now you've just authorized them. You don't know that you've authorized them because you don't know that everything operates here under what's called a state law. So you don't know that you're always talking from a principle of an heir or a beneficiary to a trustor or trustee or co-firm. If you don't know that's how things operate, you know, that puts you at a disadvantage. Therefore, if you don't know that culture's in the language and someone doesn't teach you these principles and start correcting your language and things that you say, you keep asking for slavery and then getting it and then complaining, which makes it a contradiction of law, because the law begins with yourself. This is why even when, say, they do things, or like say they're executing some kind of action with you, the auctioneer, who you may think is a judge, and you would know whether it's an auctioneer or a judge based on the venue that you're in or that you're dealing with. Say, for instance, like if you don't know better that a judge must be an Article III established person with a bond and an oath, you understand, You may think he's a judge because he puts a judge up there, a tag up there, say judge, and he's auctioning you. Now, logically, if you don't contest or if you don't question them, then that's a waiver. And any right that is waived is considered abandoned. Now, you don't know they're operating from that principle unless you know law. You see? So it's the disadvantage of our people when they go into these different venues. And now most of our people who think they saved, they know God, Jesus, Allah, they're packed in jails. Because they don't know they're on an auction block. Because they think the United States is the land. The United States is a private selling corporation of Romans who are occupying North America, pretending to be Americans, and you haven't contested it. Since you're the real Americans. See the problem? You understand the papers? That birth certificate that your father, that you're talking about, that you keep saying is your birth certificate, no, that's their bond on that body. And it's on the stock market.
Well, I'm saying it's from the Moorish Empire.
No, listen to what I'm saying to you. You're talking about going to get your birth certificate in New York.
No.
I'm telling you, what I'm saying to you, that certificate, and it shouldn't be a certificate, it should be a birth record. A certificate means there's something to sell. Or some affirmation that's not outside of a deed, if you understand. So when you talk about the natural being, then there's not a certificate for yourself. You might get a certificate for some achievement, but if it's on you, you're a child. And this is why you need to learn language. This is why you need to learn law. As a matter of fact, this is why Diwali commanded that every temple must have a school. You see? And he registered the Moorish Holy Temple of Science as a civic organization. And then in 28, he adopted a religious affidavit for the Moorish Science Temple of America so that people would come in, they could put their stuff in the state and protect it from the corporate entities who were robbing our people, which they were constantly doing. So it's necessary for the people to have both civic principles and what you call religious instruction. Of course, you'd have to go back to the principles of Kabbalistic principles to really get religion, because the masses don't get religion in these days. They think they do. You understand? But you can't tell people that from the door because they think going praying to a church, mosque, and synagogue is religion. No, it's not religion. That's ritual. That's ritual to keep people busy. Like you pet your dog, you tie him up to a chain. He said, "Oh, I like this chain. It's gold." No, it's because he's bound. And do you understand? You put a rope on an elephant's foot. He can pull trees down and put a rope on an elephant's foot. Put a stake in the ground, train him that while he won't go nowhere because they think he can't move. It's no different. That's how dogma is used today, and dogma is what the masses get. The priesthood and the sheiks and the master masons and Skull and Bones and Kaiklos, Ku Klux Klan, the dragons, they all get religion. The masses don't get paid. They get blind faith. From the blind faith comes what is called fiat. They get fiat. The rulers get the gold and silver, and this is how the stuff is run. The masses get color of law, color of office, color of authority. The rulers deal with jurisprudence. And so these dynamics go on every day. And until you begin to raise the people to a consciousness that they can recognize this and begin to tiptoe through the tulips, if you kind of understand what I'm saying, we're at a severe disadvantage. And so this is why this information is being given to you. Because different people are of different degrees, but you've got to give them keys because they don't know they're in slavery. The problems that we have with the municipalities, that's because they are slave owners. They are corporate entities whose business is enforcing the Secret Treaty of Verona. Your idea is that they're just in business making money. They're not dealing with money, they're dealing with the states. You understand what I'm saying to you? Because the masses aren't allowed to handle money. So the deal of it is that Drew Ali came and actually brought you out of degrees that by the virtue of the popes of Rome and other persons across the land, the intention was for you never to get this information. Do you understand? And so there was also what's called within the Moorish Science Temple of America Adept Chamber, where things are spoken of more bluntly as we speak now, or some of the degrees that would not ever be given on the floor. So like I say, if somebody come into a Moorish Science Temple of America, they would have an impression of what they're getting. Now, it's according to where they are in their degrees. If they have been raised in degrees, they get bored and they probably leave. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Somebody's don't have degrees, it'd be totally interesting to them until they grow up. Now, if somebody don't take them to the attic chamber, sooner or later they're gonna leave. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Because it become reverse church. However, with the sellout, unfortunately, that is what's happening with a lot of temples. Which is again why, in order to give you added degrees, I would have to come to a venue like this that's not in their jurisdiction. I'm in support of the temples because they're needed, do you understand? But I also know the degrees upon which I speak would not be allowed to come across them floors. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because they're added degrees. Do you understand? And meaning because it's like this. Once you raise people to a certain degree, ordinary institutions can't handle them anymore. Meaning the Masonic Lodge can't put a carrot in front of your face and have you spend thousands of dollars for 10 years before you get to the degrees that we give you in one night. Do you understand? Same thing with the temples. Except the temples are there for the delivery. They're not there, they're not compromised. They're there for the delivery. However, many of the administrators have been compromised and therefore have held back information that should be dispensed so that we would not have to deal with what you call outside order to bring remedy to some of the things that we deal with every day, which the temples are designed to do. But yet, people would not know that if you visited the average temple. Do you understand? Not because the structure's there. The temple's all right. We have problems with administration. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? So it's necessary to protect the temples and keep them doors open because, we need to protect our institutions and we need to improve them. But we need to also make sure that the youth get these degrees so that they can go into the temples and clean them up. Because they're still your house. So somebody's misusing your house and they won't cut the grass in the yard, don't mean they ain't your house, does it? Does it? So we're busy cutting the Europeans' grass, that's why his stuff's good. What you need to, go clean your own. At the same time, Islam, all right. So it's so important for us to get some fundamentals down to make it effective. Like say, for instance, as you grow up, if there's certain things that you don't know that are vital for you to know, logically, when you have children, you will not project it to them because you don't know. You can't give what you don't know. You understand what I'm saying to you? And so, not knowing that you're actually being groomed for a position in society, you think that you're working and everything is to acquire wealth or to build a life when actually you're a piece of capital or battery. You looked at it as either way. And the structure is built to accommodate exactly that. Other issue, when you begin to get this information, you will begin to see that. And logically, you'll start rebelling against frauds. Now, logically, some people will get upset with you because now when you're awake, that means the vampires can't feed. Like, what you doing with a turtleneck? Who told you to wear a turtleneck? That's what you kind of get from both Grand Sheiks, Master Masons, Skull and Bones, different people that are in different positions. When somebody wakes you up and they can't feed on you anymore. You understand? Who told you that? But the deal of it is when we begin to give you reference points so that you can get it for yourself, it becomes your own, then you become in the order of becoming more allodial in your thinking, or what you would consider more free. And this is based back to what Raleigh says, I came to redeem you from mental slavery, which you have now. Do you understand? Which means he's taking you to another degree. He also says Islam is giving you degrees. Now the statement can be said, but at what point do you understand or can you recognize those degrees in actuality? You can hear the statement, but how can you manifest and how can you give proof to yourself that you're being raised in degrees? You see the point? Therefore, once you have what you call comparatives, once you're able to look at certain information and then compare it with other information, it will dawn on you, then it becomes yours. And this is the real purpose of the Moorish Science Temple of America, the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, the real reason why the Moorish Divine Movement was established. Therefore, those who are the vanguard must do what they can to protect the Prophet and the movement because it's been misrepresented.
Islam.
Do you understand? However, whether you're in the temple or on the street, the principle still survives because the cause creates the institutions. The institution did not create the cause. You see? Now, like say for instance, like if we had an ordinary child's dictionary, right? I would just simply give you an adeptus degree. And an adeptus degree is what was given to Malcolm. Now, years ago, I was assistant minister in the Nation of Islam. So I'm aware of a lot of things that's in the inner circle that the masses or ordinary believers don't ever get. Logically, when you learn more, there's two things you do. You stay with the compromise or you step. I stepped, just like Malcolm did, just like Clarence did, just like Wallace did, just like John did, and just like many did. That's how the 5%ers came with Clarence did. You understand what I'm saying? Nation of gods and earth. And then yet many of them brothers and sisters don't know that the root of their information is Adam Chamber of the Moorish Science Temple of America, because they don't know the history, you see. So when you know the history, a lot of dirty people in between can't remain honorable. You know, notice how you impress with someone when they ain't telling you the root, they giving you some of the information, and then they make a throne for themselves, and you get all impressed with them, and they really hide the stuff from you. Don't mean that they ain't gave you something. I mean, you know, because the truth of the matter is this is about our people's birthright collectively. It's not about clubism. Do you understand? It's about the nation at large that has been occupied by a foreign entity and don't know they're under occupation. They've been trained to think they're dealing with racism. The civilized world knows they're dealing with European occupation. So what makes them what you would call useful in being effective to fix their problem, they're totally incompetent. And don't know they're incompetent. And then we have egos too. So when you give people information that they're not used to, they're also measured by their beliefs that actually have nothing to do with reality. But yet beliefs are strong amongst the masses. Do you understand? They don't even know that's a social engineering tool. So when you begin to deal with real truths, people get uncomfortable. Institutions start to curl up. You understand? So therefore, persons who've been living off the poor get angry at persons like that. That's why they usually tag them for death. Do you understand? Now, consider that Martin Luther King was a 33-degree Mason, right? Now, in secret, he had a Moorish fez. But you don't hear them ministers going across the podium talking about they know who the Moors are, do you? Reverend Sullivan, big church in Philly, he was a Mason. Reverend Gray, who became congressman, a Mason. Al Green, the singer, Mason. Jesse Jackson, Mason. Abernathy, Mason. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? But most of our people don't know what Masonry is. They don't know it's actually Moorish science codified coming from the Renaissance that the Moors did in Europe, bringing the Europeans out of darkness into light. And that was codified into an order of preserving that knowledge. And they rule the world with Islam, even though they may be Christians. You see the whole point? So your concepts of what you think the world is not really what it is. You understand what I'm saying to you? While even over the podiums condemning Islam, while in secret got Qurans. Just like all your presidents, Johnson, you understand? Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, you understand? Jefferson, all got Qurans. Why? Because there's certain truths that cannot pass away in order for civilization to live. But then when you have political agendas, certain things are hidden and then certain things are projected. As an example, you know, like the Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed is the official name of Christianity. However, how many people go to church don't even know that? But yet they're going to tell you about the Bible, which saying came from the Septuaginta, and that most of them have never seen. But the priest got it. Do you see what I'm saying? So once you take an average person and bring them up into a priest degree, then the priesthood can't suck them no more. Why? Because they themselves start reading and discover that the priests and the imams and the rabbis have been lying to them. Doesn't mean that everything they said to you is a lie. Doesn't mean that. It means they've been deceiving you and living off of you instead of raising you, which is what their job is implied to do, yet they do not do. Meanwhile, it makes you food for them and food for the Europeans. 501c3 that all them so-called religious orders get, right? That's an agreement with Skull and Bones member Lyndon Baines Johnson to control his marching Negro leader marcher guys.
602.
That's an agreement to give them kickbacks. That's where the tax exempt status comes from. And now the people think, because they're teaching the word of God, of the Lordness, and this is why Jesus don't charge us tax, because we're in the house of God. And that's the masses' view. No, that's an agreement to keep the leader guys under control. That's a kickback. So the dummies pay them with 10% Roman tax. You know what 10% Roman tax? You know what the word is for 10% Roman tax paying to Rome? Do you know the word? It's called tithe. And our people think that means Lord's money. But they're talking about the Lords of London, and they don't even know that. Under the secret treaty of Rome. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Now keep in mind, all imams know this, all rabbis know this, all grand sheikhs know this, all sheikhs know this. Anybody got the PhD degrees, those are what's called doctorate or philosophy degrees. Whenever you see somebody get the titles, when they're ministers, reverends, master masons, eastern stars, skull and bones, kite blows, they may have diverse interests, but all of them are Kabbalists, every last one of them. Do you understand what I'm saying? And that's a hard truth, huh? Kabbalism is actually fundamental truths relative to Gnosticism. It is the science of geometry, astrology, cosmology, laws of nature, fundamental truth of religion, which is universal. Like say, for instance, say for an average reverend, knows, like say if you want to, you deal with the principle of 3, 5, 7, 9, etc. Say 23rd chapter of the book of Psalms, you go into that to get your Aleph Beth, because the Aleph Beth is the Kabbalistic background or the basis upon which that book is drafted. And then you give all of the Kabbalistic alphabets. For the masses, they'll call it the Hebrew alphabet. For the high priest, it's the Kabbalistic Aleph Beth. And this is where you get the term alphabet. And understand, in the houses where they control the masses, the opiate of the mind, they take out Beth or Bayat, the second letter or the house of bread of the Hebrew alphabet, in order to create the high priesthood, which is why all your priests are men. And then they convert all of the principles of true religious philosophy into a masculine order for the popes of Rome to rule the world. Now, logically, all priests know that, but the masses don't know that. They read them books and swear they know them books. They do not know them books. And if you tell them that, then they get upset with you, and they start thinking you're the devil. And the priests tell them that in order to protect their corruption. And so as soon as you start showing people any of what you call the master degrees, they think it's devil worship. Because they're told that by the priesthood themselves, who in secret got all the books. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And so on top of that, this is why the enslavement or the mental social enslavement is so entrenched, and what makes it difficult to bring people out of darkness into light. Because they don't know certain keys. And until they know certain keys, they will certainly happily remain in their ignorance. And then logically, when other nationals, even though most of the civilized world has been under the oppression of European occupation on one level or another of colonial operations, most of the nationals at least have enough basic knowledge of actual world history and mathematics to know better than a lot of the crap that they do here, including the fiction of calling human beings crayons. Our people here actually think that human beings are crayons. They really do. We're talking about adults. Of course, in other civilized nations, they look like these people deep. But we think they diss us. Do you understand? And then because they're not subject to nigger taxes, which are invoked within everything that you do, or someone from another nation state, even if they are not well educated, can come in and in communities where we are, get empty buildings that have been empty since you was going to school young, and be well off in 2 years and selling you toilet paper and someone else's hair. And our people ain't figured it out yet because they don't even know that they're under nigger taxes. But you can't tell them because they know Jesus and you don't. So like if you even try to give them a little bit of keys, they get insulted. Talking about you didn't make salat last week, so therefore you're not worthy. All that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, the imams, the rabbis, and the priests all know this information. All of them, man. Do you know all of them? Now to the masses, they're divided. In secret is a brotherhood. But the people least suspect the priesthood. That's where your problem is. You see, and as soon as you say Allah, Jesus, Muhammad, people get, their eyes get glassy, and they start giving you their lunch money. You know, so it's kind of hard to save them. You know, this is why the masses are going down. All you need to do is walk out any of these, you know, grand buildings, look before you look left and look right, and all you see is destruction with all these saved people. You know, the proof is in the pudding, but they don't believe in those proofs. Oh, that's man stuff. Yeah. Well, you keep paying taxes to them. If that's man stuff, why you keep on participating? If that's the way you really feel. You know, we're even hypocrites with the stuff that we say. You get the point? Now, example, I'll give you an add-up degree. Like you're aware of them emphasizing when the minister took Malcolm to a dictionary, right? And we're doing movies or something like that when they talk about Malcolm X. They say, oh man, this is tight, man. This brother, this minister came into the prison cell and he gave Malcolm a dictionary and told Malcolm to expand his vocabulary deep. And everybody, you know, oh man, that's cool, man. Like that, right? That's the general impression. Am I correct?
Yeah.
And if I'm wrong, tell me.
That's right.
All right, well, this is really what happened. Keep in mind, all ministers, all rabbis, all imams, all master masons, all kitelos, skull and bones, Knights Malta, etc., all of them, anybody that got those titles, even though they may be attached to different organizations that may have different agendas, are all Kabbalists and they're all Gnostics. It's only a matter of degrees where they are. Do you understand? So in secret, they will be going to what, if you dig into some of those organizations, you'll see the ancient mystery schools of Egypt.
Yes.
Like that type thing. Do you understand? However, Kabbalists. Meanwhile, across their pulpits and rostrums, they'll condemn that information for the most part. Don't y'all be looking at them stars and crescents and stuff. And our people go, how much? On that. Really? I'm gonna give you, now this is an added degree. Now I'm a grand sheik and I'm a minister.
Islam.
Anybody that got them titles are PhDs, do you understand?
Yeah.
There's doctors of philosophy. I don't care if it's math, social engineering, carpentry, wherever you master, that's a doctorate of philosophy. Are we clear?
Yeah.
All right. You were speaking of the Moors, honestly, you know, based on what you know, and logically from a third-party perspective, right? And so, like, say, for instance, so you go in the dictionary and say you look that up, right? This is an example. And I'm telling you this because I already know that this is one of the degrees that was given to Malcolm. Because being assistant minister in the Nation of Islam, I already know when you get into the supreme wisdom, like say for instance you got actual facts. One of the keys that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad exposed to the Asiatics was this, one of the lessons, one of the keys. What is a Mason? That's one of the questions. The answer is a Mason is a Muslim son. Once you start researching that, you're going to find a lot of things. So it's not that he didn't tell. It's do they know what they saw? Because as soon as you research and you're going back to the Renaissance, right? And then you go to the Renaissance, and then you start finding out the Secret Treaty of Rome, Spanish Inquisition, ETC, Fall of the Moors, why the Mummers Parades in Philadelphia, a whole bunch of stuff that you don't expect. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? That you don't expect. However, if you just take it on the surface, it just remains what it is. Interesting? Oh, yeah. Then you don't know why they have a Moorish fez. Then it's like when Obama went to, he cooked up recent years, and he exposed that the United States Constitution came from Muslim law. He gave you a world of history, and how many people went just like this. And he didn't put out a red flag, he put out a crimson flag right in front of their face. That's why the European, no matter what Obama says, you ain't no Christian, you a Muslim. Because they know that he knows the real history. And he knows that he ain't black. Because he's not some Christian property. And they mad at him because they ain't got a birth certificate on the stock market.
Islam, he has a Muslim.
You understand what I'm saying?
He has a Muslim name.
Yeah, but we're talking the politics behind it. Not just the name, we're talking about the fact that he's not black.
Right.
Now, our people, for the masses, think that black's an identity. They don't know it's a tag. And they caress it seriously. Back to an adult degree, because this is one of the adult degrees that's given, like when you get to the supreme wisdom, this is when you get into the ministers, right?
Wow.
That's why a lot of times, like you'll see, a lot of ministers will have a picture of Elijah Muhammad with his fez on, but most of the believers don't have that picture.
Islam.
Right.
Islam.
Do you understand?
Never saw it.
Oh, yeah. I'll bring it in sometime. This is for fun. Now, Brother Dula Iltalib Mosi Bey, you see what, Brother Dula, can you stand for a minute? You all, this is Brother Abdullah Iltalib Mosi Bey, one of the best etymologists in the country, in my opinion, and it's not biased because I know him. It's just simply the truth.
Right.
Part of what I'm telling you, this is what he does. This is his baby. And he teaches on multiple levels. And he did a class also the past week at the theater in New York, was an excellent class. I had to come past because I don't usually go to the theater in New York because they had stopped running the Chinese buses for a minute. And I stopped because it was so much of a hassle. I stopped going. But I went the other week and he was doing a class on actually the truth of Jesus and stuff we've been talking about for years. It was such an excellent class, and I trust if he has the DVD, for those who may be interested, to get it, you'll do yourself a great reward. And these are things like that that you're going to get, but you'll only get into your higher degrees of the different orders, but never as blunt and never as straightforward. But anyway, for those who don't know him, now you know him, Brother Abdullah Iltalib Mosi Bey, great etymologist. Yeah, big announcement.
Putting out a newspaper called Masonic Light. Welcome everyone, first of all.
Islam.
In honor of Islam. Everyone. In 2 weeks, a paper called Masonic Light will be out, making 20,000 copies. My target is Masons and Eastern Stars, classified as Negro Color Black, United States Census Bureau. Since this DVD been out, I did this presentation at the King Solomon Grand Lodge in Washington, D.C. in July. Since I've done this presentation, I've been able to connect with hundreds of Masons and Eastern Stars throughout the country, through all the people. Now, I'm going to step it up a notch with the newspaper Masonic Light. I'm using the title Masonic Light to call attention to those who are Masons and Eastern Stars in the lodges. So that paper will be out in about 2 weeks. All right? So I'm excited about that.
Where we get that?
We'll be here. We'll have you. All right?
It'll be known.
How often would it come out?
It's going to be known.
We try to do it quarterly. At this time, we're going to put out the first week because I'm working on my book, Moors and Masonry. Because I'm working on my book, Moors and Masonry, I'm going to get that out. So, because I have some financial assistance with that, we're going to be putting out the paper sooner than I expected. So the paper will be out in 2 weeks. our book will be out in spring of 2014. So once I'm more putting a lot of focus on my book, Moorish Masonry. I have distribution set up in different parts of the country for the newspaper, the Sign of Light. All right, so.
It should be effective.
Oh, it will. It will be effective. All right.
Thank you. Just, so touch bases with them on that, because for those who you're a little more advanced, I know some of you are neophytes, but those who really want to know, like you, you're so good, because it'll take you across a bridge, meaning that in order really to clean this kind of mess up, we have, it's kind of a crude situation where you have to kind of take people that are almost know little to nothing about what's really going on and take them past their own teachers. And dealing with all the mess in between that they still got to clean up along the way, but necessary to save them from the vampires. So it creates a little bit of conflict and controversy, but you just got to accept it comes with the territory. But anyway, so like as an example, I'm back to the issue with one of the added degrees that was given to Malcolm in the prison cell. And the reason I know is I'm a minister. You understand? But I also know that even within the orders, very few are told. According to who you are, you understand what I'm saying? How close you are to the inner circle. You know, like as far as, like on a personal level, you know, like personal friends, like Muhammad Ali come to my house, Joe Tex used to sing songs, you know, with skinny legs and all. And so when you're in, you know, when you're in a circle, you're amongst people that the average people don't necessarily have what you call inner circle information. And when you get closer to the hierarchy, you're exposed to information that the masses never did. Do you understand? All right. So the masses think this is the identity because it's thrown around, right? So let's go to 3 degrees, so third degree. Right? Third grade grammar. And I'm going to show you why a lot of Europeans call our people boys and girls and mock them, and our people don't understand why. They're trying to diss a brother, trying to diss the black man. You know, and come here, boy, because that's the mental state. Even the legal term minorities created on that principle. Our people think it means numbers. It's Afrocentric numbers. It's mental social condition. Now, so when you this is I'm keep it very, very simple. First there was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The predominant word within that structure is Word, not God. All right? Yeah. See that Trinity? All right. Now, when you look up a word, you cannot read if you don't know the cellular makeup. That's called the logistic structure of things, or the atom of things. And what, as an example, as a symbol, this is used as a symbol in science, right? And they do your nucleus, right? Right? That's symbol of an atom, right? Right? So what does this represent? What's that represent?
Electron.
And, all right, right? Basic symbol, right? But it's a reflection of the universe. Now you see where you get the term Allah, the Father of the universe? You see? So it's cosmology. Now you understand the symbol of the meteorite in Kabbalism, the square of the cube, geometry. Do you see? Then you pull the robe off Kaaba, and it's a female. The feminine principle, Allah is a feminine name, yet the masses use it in the term of a masculine implied, not understand that man is the species, not gender, until they're at it. You see the point? So the masses are confused the way they receive language. A priest is not, because they're masters. Which means you're given certain information that the masses don't get so that you're not confused because you have to run things. However, most priests take advantage of what they know instead of raising the dead. You get the point? That's where our problem is. The priesthood is corrupted. Are we clear? Now, black, our people assume, is an identity, right? And what that nucleus is to the atom the etymon is 2 words. So look at it with that same logistical approach. So etymon is the egg, the ovum, the seed, the mother, the denotation of every word matters not the language.
Yes.
Are we clear? The science of the etymon is etymology. Sometimes loosely referred to as grammatication, orthology, stuff like that. Those are related. But essentially, etymology is the science of language. It deals with the history, the origin, the true meanings, and the morphology of words on the planet. Are we clear?
Yeah.
All persons who get PhDs must know this rule because they need to know how to read. And they also need to know how to look at other literature and critique it and analyze it. Are we clear? Now, I don't have to tell you that this principle that I just told you is not taught in schools where our children are, because I already know they're not. Are we clear? However, if you don't know that, you can't read. Now, you know you say that to most people and they insulted already. I got 10 degrees. And $5 and more than you. You understand? That's the impression. You understand? All right. Now, for the grooming of the masses, and keep this in mind when the minister comes into the cell and gives Malcolm the degrees, what you think you see in the movie, but what's really going on. I'm just giving you pulling the veil, 2 different things. He will see after this, you'll see this.
ADG.
Now, what is that?
Adjective.
All right. Now let's go back to 3rd grade, right? Yes.
What is that?
Adjective.
Huh?
Is that adjective?
Yeah.
ADG.
Yeah. Now thank you. Are you paying attention?
Yeah.
That's what you're supposed to do. Can you spell? It's called casting spells. And just the way that is misspelled, so is the misconception of what this word is. Of course, that's what it's called an abbreviation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, issue. Learn to limit abbreviating when writing. It's part of the trick of design to reduce truth. So black is an adjective. Now, how many parts of speech are there? 3rd grade grammar. 3 degrees. How many parts of speech? Remember, these are adults, because we got to save these babies. So how can they know if you don't know? How many parts of speech? Raise your hand. Adults. Good.
8.
Come on now. How many parts of speech?
There are 8 parts of speech.
All right. Now, to all our benefit, she's a teacher. 8 parts of speech. So now, like, one of the things I used to do with my babies, I used to take like old egg carton and cut 4 sections off, and we go through the dictionaries in our library. And I give my daughter, my son, different words and have them categorize them. Put little tags, right, make little tags, take little tags in the A box and have them classify. Now you already know some words sometimes cross over,
Yeah.
but in general, that's the classification. So the first thing they must do is put it in its proper mother. And so these little baskets will be called matrices. So the matrices are wombs. Matrix means womb. So have them put it in the proper matrix, because that's the first thing that must be done for you to have comprehension of what the word means. And you do not violate that rule. If you violate that rule, you're already on your way to creating educated illiterates. Are you seeing what's taking place already? We ain't got far.
Yes, that's
All right? So if this is an adjective, it's not a noun and definitely not a proper noun, is it? So for child, now remember the boy and girl thing that they like to call us. For a child, if a child, 3rd grade, knows that black's an adjective and not a proper noun, can it be a person, place, thing, or idea? Isn't that simple? So now, before we go into the linear entries, we know there's no such thing as black people unless it's used for a social engineering purpose or in a connotative manner.
yes.
That's the distinction between a scholar and a dummy. The difference between the imam and the believer. The difference between the preacher and the bill payer. The difference between the potentate and the journeyman. Do you understand? Drew Ali's issue is to bring you to the degree of the priesthood.
Yes.
That's the purpose of the Moorish Divine National Movement overall. The degree that it is done or not done is not my argument at the moment. I'm telling you what the movement is all about. Are we clear? So that you can reach for that goal yourself, even if those you communicate with you don't take you there. Now you know where to go. You know the purpose. Do you understand? One of the major purposes. So now, after you look at its matrix, that it's part of speech, that's the matrix, right? Then you're going to look at its etymon, or its etymology, and it'll be in brackets, right? First, it will give you short versions of pronunciation right after that, and that'll usually be in italics, right? But because space, I'm not going to put that on there. And then it will have, after that, something like this. In capital letters, right?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Middle English.
All right, so now, Middle English, this is what the Arabs know. So, Abdullah, etymologist. So if I look up a word, black, and I see Middle English, what is the duty of the scholar to do at that time? Is to put a timeline on it. What is the timeline for Middle English?
1100 to 1500.
So now 1100 to 1500s. Immediately, the scholar knows it's not ancient. So could there be some ancient black gods of Egypt?
No way.
Now you understand the difference between the imam and the believer, the difference between the master mason and the club guy paying the bills, because he can't read and don't know how to, because he don't know the rules. He doesn't know that now you go into math because you put a timeline on it. So they don't know that numbers and letters also are given what you call qualities. You see? Remember, this is basic. We're not even getting into linear entry yet. Not one linear entry. And you ask most of our people, yeah, that's black people, that's Afrocentric people. They just admitted to be Christian property under the 14th Amendment, slaves, though it's used connotatively. Because they don't know it's a brand. They think a brand is just a hot iron where somebody puts a mark on your forehead. Well, the mark can be internal. You see? Like you see in the book, in the Bible, it says the mark or the number of the beast. It's a mental issue. Everything is not physical, so you're dealing with physical and abstract, aren't you? And yet most people wouldn't know that the high priesthood did this to mark them. And so when they go amongst the civilized world without a nationality, a name and nationality, now they're referred to as three-fifths men. And don't even know why, don't even know it's a legal process. Now they have no birthright, but they think they saved. Don't even know when it's talking about three-fifths person, it's talking about people without a name or nationality. And yet they read it, because they can't read. Do you get the whole point?
Yes.
Meanwhile, they talk about how saved they are, and how much they know Allah and Jesus and Muhammad and Buddha. And the world's laughing at them all the way to the bank while they're saved with their beliefs. And you can't tell them anything different. And you start getting them information, you don't have to worry about the Romans attacking you. They will attack you because it doesn't fit their belief systems. You see the problem? This is what keeps the Romans, this is what keeps the Europeans in power. Ignorance. And for a lack of knowledge, our people are destroyed. And what is in place to maintain it? Secret Treaty of Verona. Verona, V-E-R-O-N-A. O-N-A. Now, so Middle English, all right, even though it's derivative, you already know that if it's Middle English, what does that have to do with Asiatics and Africans, other than being derivative? It can't be original. That's right. You see what I'm saying? So before we get into linear entry, you can see already it's been dismissed. So can we be black people?
No.
Now, a scientist knows that, an etymologist knows that, a social engineer knows that, an anthropologist knows that, but the club members in the schools,
yeah, that means Afrocentricity. See, because the black man, they're pants. The black man is the father of civilization.
black men ain't never done nothing but serve somebody else. And going around pretending to be somebody they're not. And transacting business in another man's name and pretending to have some other gods when that man's their God. They won't buy or sell without the mark or the number of that man. While talking about they only fear Allah and Jesus. No, they fear that European, and they refuse to call him a European. They call him Great White Father, which means the Great Sovereign. So they just say white man so they can maintain their religious dignity. They're full of crap.
That's right.
Do you understand what I'm saying? However, everybody lets them maintain their pride and their dignity. Meanwhile, as soon as they're out of a job 2 weeks, they go to some other countries and start murdering women and children, keep that Roman in power, and then come back and march and pray on it. Because they ain't got no rights. And that's how the rest of the world sees them. That's why nobody don't like black people. Because they're hypocrites. But of course we don't see ourselves that way, do we? The world sees you that way.
That's right, they do.
That's why they don't come here and school you on a lot of this stuff about your real history. Because they don't exactly feel sorry for you because you've caused injury to a lot of people. You really have, including yourselves. So, when somebody brings what you call a higher degree, so our people most of the time, they get an attitude, they reject it, or they start challenging, you don't know God, all that kind of Disney stuff. So you can see the civilized world is not necessarily, Islam, brother, fired up about putting their neck on the line to bring you out of darkness. Because not only are we ignorant, we're arrogant with it. Do you understand? But I'm saying this to you, once you begin to research, it becomes your knowledge and you'll see it for yourself. I won't have to tell you, you will tell me and tell others. Are we clear? That's what this information is for. That's what your Father is conveying to you. But it can only give you some foundation to try to save you from certain political pressures right now, but you have to get as serious in the study of yourself to really understand its value. Because until you become a part of it, you will never appreciate its value. You never will. Do you understand? And some people will never get there. In war, there's casualty. You understand what I'm saying to you? And it's getting like that. However, we need to get enough of this information out as quickly as we can and as grounded as we can with our limited resources to save most of our people from impending destruction. That must take place, because this stuff has to be cleaned up. It really does, because right now it's threatening civilization itself. And so there's two things they're going to do. They're going to destroy institutions and they're going to destroy people. They are, you know. Now, a point of this, how many of you looked at your feathers? How many of you understand the structure of your feathers? Also, I want to remind you all that those of you who need feathers, etc., buttons, flags, etc., see Brother Nabi and Sister Anissa. They were also Black's Law Dictionary, etc. You're going to need it for your studies. You definitely going to need it for your studies. Make sure you see Brother Nabi, Sister Anissa. You have some cards too? When you have the cards, just leave some up here because I'm going to make sure that I'm pass them out at the same time. So if anybody needs Black's Law Dictionary, your 192 stamps, that's for House Joint Resolution 192, feathers, etc. See, Sister Anissa. So look at them so y'all get used to them. Because they've been actually, to some degree of sacrifice, making it available at very reasonable prices for everybody.
Is it a certain edition of the Black's Law Dictionary?
Yes, you want to get a fourth, third, back, but mainly the fourth is the monster. So deal with it. Now, you're going to deal with others when you really become a serious scholar. You're going to have the some other versions, but that's what you need. Meaning that first, let's get the tools that you absolutely need. Meaning, get the car first, then we'll talk about the bike. If you want to do some travel, sort of like that. Now, because keep in mind, after the fourth edition, they start watering it down. Fifth is decent. Sixth is lukewarm. Seventh and out, then they're so watered down that they're good for somebody who has no knowledge, but they're not a scholar's tool. And keep in mind, as the people begin to learn systematically, they will always strongly and deeply dilute books. They just call it editing. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? All right. So you want to get your fourth. So don't forget her. Look at her in her eyes. Don't forget his brother. Look him in the eyes. Because you're going to need this. I'm telling you, you're going to need it. So invest in yourself. Keep in mind, because nobody's going to invest in your education. And due to the fact that some of the institutions that are established to bring this knowledge to you have not met their charters, we're going to tell you so you can invest in yourself instead of giving them your tithing. Give you your tithing and go get your tools. Because any of you within short order should be able to stand up here. If I got to go to the bathroom, you jump up here and fill in. Just like that. And if you can't, then something's wrong with the instructors. Do you understand? Because it's not a class for believers. This is a class for knowers. We're in the Aquarian age, not in the Piscean age. We're not under the popes anymore. We're under the structures of the caliphs and the sultans back to the ancient ones. Do you understand? All right. Now, on top of your fez, you'll see a finial. Would you see this finial right here? This also represents a navel. Like sometimes, if any of you know philosophy, you'll see a circle with a dot, and they're called the black dot theory. It's dealing with the, what you call the universe. Also in your older Septuagintas, in some of your Bibles, they use the circle with the dot as a symbol for what they call God. I say God, what they call God. You understand? All right. On your top of your feathers, you'll have perforations in 4 corners. Those 4 corners, in the first circle, it will be 9 perforations. And they're a circle of 3 in your 4 corners. So you got 3 and 4, right? All right? So you got 3 sets of circles in 4 corners. And you've got 360-degree circle. The navel, And then you have the umbilical cord. Then you have the ball of mud called Earth. Then you got the degrees of the Earth dancing around the sun. Same thing with the top of the cap that you get when you graduate. You see? Now that circle is also Aleph or Alpha and Omega. 360 degrees, right? And on your cap, when you graduate from the institutions of learning, it's 90 degrees squared, right? And that commits to what? 360 degrees. And when you graduate, as they say, you rise in degrees, you toss the tassel, how many degrees? 180 degrees. You see? So 1, 8, and O equals what? There you go. So it's 9 cosmic months of man's birth. Do you understand? Now, if you ever examine a cap, they call it a cap. They also call it a mortarboard. Now, when you're doing anybody knows anything about masonry, when you're doing bricks, brickwork, concrete, stuff like that, you have a mortarboard, particularly when you're doing bricks, and it has a stick in the center, and it's square, and you use it when you're slopping your trowel, when you're cutting mud, right? It's called a mortarboard, right? Mortarboard is used for what? Mortar. For masonry. Now, what is masonry? Masonry is the science of woman and man, the study of Isis and Horus, and the principles that go back millennia, even beyond them, which is represented in the modern world as Mary and Jesus in a symbol, or the mother and son. Masonry is Ma, son, study. Do you understand? The science of the planet. Now you see why the priest will tell you it's devil worship, so you don't pay attention to it? Why? So that you don't become a priest and you don't need them anymore. Get the point? It's fine, brother.
I have a question. I was watching a video, I don't know who it was, but they were, I was watching a video, I forget who it was, but they were given a epistemology or origin of the fez.
Mm-hmm.
And they were saying that it's of Turkish origin, that the first fez came over to this country during the arrival of Turkish immigrants. So I'm asking you, and then I went and looked at the, WikiLeaks for fez.
And Fez is what? Capital of Morocco.
So I guess
exactly
what I'm asking you then.
Fez is the father's what? Of the eternal zodiac.
So does it predate the Ottoman Empire?
Of course. When they talk about the Ottoman Empire, they talk about Moors and Turks. Who kept the Europeans in check? Go check world history, war.
That's not what I'm asking.
No, what you asking?
What I'm asking is, are you saying that the Moors who ruled Spain, they ruled that peninsula?
Yeah.
They also wore fez?
Yes. What do you think the
Okay.
Fez? No, listen. The word Fez. City of Fez, province of Fez. Is it in Turkey or is it in Morocco? What is the short name for the Moroccans? Moors. Who are the Turks?
Moors.
Exactly. There's another district. And Turks are mostly referred to the amalgamated Moors in that area. Now, of course, when they deal with what they call Thanksgiving, when President John Hanson set up the Great Seal, Order of the Great Seal, and Thanksgiving, was set up by John Hanson. Who was John Hanson? First president of the United States Republic. Who was he? He was a Moor. How many people know that? Very few, which shows you that people don't know the history even here. So even when you talk about the Treaty of Peace and Friendship and that North America's Morocco, the average person who's been educated by the Europeans can't even relate. They make no connection whatsoever. It's not good, brother.
And they
Hold on
named
for a
the
second.
high.
Islam, there was a highway that's named after him in Maryland, Highway 50, John Hanson Highway, in Oxon Hill, Maryland.
Say in the mic.
In Maryland, in Oxon Hill, Maryland, there's a highway, Highway 50, named after John Hanson. It's called the John Hanson Highway in Oxon Hill, Maryland.
Now keep in mind that all persons in what you call the PhD degrees, all your ministers, adepts, etc., grand sheikhs, imams, all these people know this stuff. I'm only exposing to you some keys to let you know what's never talked about in public, but what is part of the key to their power that the believers never get, and why these people are always powerful, why they can wear $3,000 suits at the expense of the court, and get big TV programs and spend 2 hours talking nothing but emotionalism and call it spirituality and get away with it. To keep you diverted, it's like drugs, it's like a mental drug, while they actually are making deals with these Romans in the background who are funding them. Do you understand? Now, again, brother, you like even like for yourself, even some things that we're going to talk about. Even with them, say, like dealing with some things that we may later talk about, that we've talked about before even, is the issue of jurisdiction. And even the issue with the status, the legal status, or even the treatment that you get is based on your concepts of what you know what's going on, also with them, also what you know, what you don't know, how you dispense what you know, what the form is, what you're on, and how you're treated afterwards. Even, do you know the degrees of those persons that you're dealing with? All of those things would be expected of you. However, 9 times out of 10, unless somebody really tell you, you won't even know the form that you're dealing with, and they will be dealing with your life with limited to no consequence to themselves. And you would probably not even know how to approach it, other than to get injured some more. You know, and what we need to do is get information so that you can start countering what Rome is doing to you. And it is done with this knowledge. It's not done with emotionalism. It's not done with a disconnect. You must first reconnect. Because the issue that's going on here in North America is an issue of estate transfers that are made against estate, persons who are dealing in a FOFA and trustee position, and other persons who are held in what you call artificial servitude, who are really heirs to the vast estate of the world and don't know it. And the difficulty trying to get them to respect themselves, to be themselves, to stop dissing their own bloodline and reattach so that they can claim the right of the estate and stop getting abused, that they have been trained to call racism, which is not what's going on. Do you understand? And until you fix that foundation, you're not fixing the problem. Until you fix the root, you're not getting rid of that poison ivy behind. So don't have children playing in the line in the yard talking about, oh, these are some pretty ladies. Come in looking like they got, got balloons all over them. You know, the deal of it is we have to get to the root of problems. And so we're dealing with roots of problems. And that's for yourself. Again, this is again why President Obama, knowing that we're kind of distorted, had to reveal that the United States Constitution comes from Muslim law. He made sure that they took pictures of him with the guard standing to the left with the Moorish flag, This also when they was burning the embassies that Hillary spoke from the Ben Franklin room with 3 Moorish flags behind her. But that message is to the outside world so they can imply that they're not maintaining slavery, when they absolutely are. You know, because the real deal is that they are supposed to have released the claim of jurisdiction upon the eastern or on the North Gate since '54. And when Eisenhower closed down the consular court, this is one of the things that we're talking about right now. Consular issue and marshaling our own estate, EGC, and you have a lot of active Moors that are active on the marshal degree to begin to start approaching some of these Europeans to cause arrest of them. Now, some of those things will be presented to you later, but these are certain things that are going on in the background right now. But of course, and we need many of you to come up to those degrees in order to be capable of start taking care of some of your own affairs. But logically, we got to move a lot of the dross out of the way, which means until you get to a certain degree, you can't be useful with this information. Good, brother. And this is just a close-up of Hillary Clinton speaking from Ben Franklin's room. Now, logically, those of you who know history know that Ben Franklin was a minister plenipotentiary under Sultan Sidi Muhammad with the construction of the Treaty of Peace and Friendship before the adoption of the Constitution on Morocco, which is where you're standing. This is called Great Masonic Secret. Do you understand? Now, those of you who know history, this don't surprise none of you, but most of our people, they won't even know what that is. Looking at it big as day. You know why? They don't know what it is? Because most of them think they're this. So they don't relate to this. That's their reality. They're plugged into a false matrix. And so they must be unplugged from the false matrix and took to the truth in order to what? To bring them out of darkness into light. You see the point? So that their political forum can be restored and they can get remedy. Now, when you're talking, if you're looking at the seals on the back of that note that you call a dollar bill, you're looking at the Great Seal, and that's that pyramid you see. And then this is the bird.
Yeah, the bird.
Now then you look in the divine warning by the prophet for the nations, and he says what? You look at the divine constitutional bylaws as an example. Act 4 says, being Moorish American, you are part and parcel of this said government, and must live the life accordingly. So what happens when you don't know that you're parcel of this said government? And you start claiming this. Now you're property of Europeans and have no birthright. You have no political power. They can do to you what they want to do to you. Then you call that racism. Now you understand also when the prophet said, I'm gonna get you, brother. When the prophet said, Moors take your places amongst the affairs of men. Why is she speaking when there's also should be you speaking? You get the whole point? That's another thing that Malcolm found out. You understand when that French Muslim called me, going around talking about white and black people. Just because you made the Hajj, you ain't visiting home, you left home. You left home. Dorothy, you just bumped your head. I want to go home. Wear your slippers, tap together 3 times. Lion of Judah ain't got no heart. Created the straw man, 14th Amendment. Took over the industry, the Tin Man. Yellow brick road, Zodiac Constitution right in the courtyard of Philadelphia. Come on. The dog solved the problem. God spelled backwards. Pulled the curtain.
Islam. There's a song made some years ago by a European, and he stated that Oz didn't give nothing to the Tin Man that he didn't already have.
Yeah, and the group is called America.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's the group. Yeah, it's called America. The Oz never gave nothing to the Tin Man. Good song too.
Yeah, it is.
But they're talking, you know. But again, like I say, You have to, you know, a little bit by little bit, and sometimes certain things must be redundant because you have to purge, you know, till you reconnect it. Because a lot of people that are even in the temples that's been given this information, a lot of people in UNIA that's been given this information by Marcus Garvey, still didn't get it. You know, they start worshiping the guys, the leaders, and not really paying attention to what they expose to you. And therefore, we become worshipful rather than studious. You see? And this is why it is so important for our people to get away from personalities, you know, and start dealing with what is it that the prophets brought. Don't get caught up in the prophets themselves. You give them honor for what they do, but the mission is what you need to pay attention to. Pay attention to the words, and then do what? Build upon them, because that's where redemption takes place. But again, because of the training that we've had over generations, we have a tendency to worship people who, you know, bring stuff as if they don't have flaws like you.
True.
Everybody has flaws. You know, the issue is that there's a mission, there's a cause. Be clear on the cause. And so I would suggest to you, make sure that you read Divine Warning by the Prophets for the Nations, read everything that you can about neutrality, and then understand the mission.
I just want to reiterate, it's not to your point of Hillary Clinton. I was telling Brother Kadar, I thought I saw him walk in. I was telling Brother Kadar, we were at the library studying the Moorish history, and he was showing me this picture of Senator Hillary Clinton behind the Moroccan flag. And I said, well, there's a room in the State Department, it's the Adams room, John Quincy Adams room.
Yeah,
I know
because
this.
remember, he's the minister plenipotentiary too.
Yes, and I know this to be fact because I was in this room when Condoleezza Rice was giving someone an ambassadorship, and I was invited. And I was walking around the room, you know, first I'm elated that I'm in the State Department, and I'm about to watch this sister get her ambassadorship by Condoleezza Rice. But then, as I'm walking around the room, this is before the event started, I saw this black man with a 20-foot painting. I knew it was a Moroccan Moor, right? I knew this because that's my area of history. And I'm like, but I didn't know who it was, and it always puzzled me until I started studying here. And I didn't, of course, at that time, I didn't understand the Moorish history in America, the Moroccans' relationship to the United States. But in the John Quincy Adams room, and then we looked for this picture. I don't know, did we ever find it? No, we couldn't find it.
Well, usually
but there is
remember,
something
keep this in mind. Just like they do in George Washington's Masonic Lodge in Alexandria. People come from around the world, because we used to take people on trips there.
to the State Department.
No, to the Masonic Museum.
Oh, okay.
For years. And we would go there, Abdullah and myself, we would do that usually every year, sometimes twice a year, and we did it for quite some time until, you know, we just got so busy we don't do it as often. And one of the things that we noticed is that you have a lot of Europeans and a lot of Asiatics from around the world that was coming into the museum taking pictures. And when we started bringing the Asiatics there on a regular basis, they start moving things around. And certain rooms where the people went into commonly then became off limit. For instance, like one of the oil paintings that they moved out of they have a room down, I think, what's that, on the east corner, where they have all those hand carved, the parade, the Shriners Room, and they used to have a big oil painting in the corner with the president of Mexico, 1857, something like that, 1857, with his Moorish fez on with Allah written on it in jewels. And of course, that gives you a history of the Alamo, Allah's Moors, Alamo, you understand? And when the Asiatics start coming in and taking pictures, they move the picture. You won't find it now. And even in the Mystic Prophets room, they closed down a lot of that, and it used to be broad, and they simplified it. And so as the people begin to wake up, the Asiatics here, and start going there, then they start reducing stuff. So some of the old pictures, we preserve some of them. But a lot of things that you would see now, then you won't see now. As these people wake up, there will be more and more suppression of the information because they don't know that they're the heirs to the estate. It's sort of like, it is not just that they want you to be miseducated, but they must keep you mentally disconnected from the land. You see, because the people don't know they're standing on Morocco. This is why you see the European will promote any of these so-called black religious organizations, because they are there for mental drug, to keep you diverted, disconnected. Because as soon as you say God, Jesus, Allah, people think that they're leading them to righteousness. And it's really just mental, social engineering. It's not my brother.
Yes, sir.
It doesn't mean that you're not going to get anything good from institutions. Don't misunderstand me. But for the most part, it's diversion that we get.
Brother, we drove up from North Carolina. Thanks for having us. We really appreciate it. And we are from the home very close to where Noah Lee was born and raised up. And we have some of the study group back in North Carolina. We really get heavy into this type of knowledge. But I am a little bit drawn back or taken back, and I hope that you can take my question in the manner by which I bring it. The word black, you've indicated, and I'm under the impression, based on your indication, came around 1100, 1500 time frame. Is that correct? Okay.
It doesn't make it a negative. You must take it in the context of the social engineering.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And what I want to ask you is, just for my own clarification, the Middle English gave us that classification. Is that correct?
No.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No.
Can you just briefly tell us where it came from?
All right. This is what, and this is, and this is where, and it's not unlike the question that you asked.
Yes, sir.
And this is where much of what's dealing with linguistics,
Yes, sir.
Arts and letters is attributed to Europeans, because usually the Europeans take credit for things. However, you must know, even when they're talking about law, and they're talking about jurisprudence, they're talking about Roman and French law, talking about Moorish law.
Yes, sir.
You know, when you're talking about the Renaissance men who run the world, who are called Masons, you're simply talking about Muslims' sons. They got it from you. You know, and what happens is we have this tendency, which is by design, to keep disconnecting from things that the European takes credit for as if it didn't belong to you in the first place.
Yes, sir.
And so we are like, for instance, the closest thing that the European can have on his own, in a sense, it doesn't dismiss him, don't misunderstand what I'm saying. And even that's not totally his, it would be Gaelic. Anything else is derived from, and even that's derivative. But as far as really that you can kind of call theirs, but everything cultural on the planet is there is technically, and in fact, really truthfully, no real Roman culture.
So we're not saying that black just came in 1100?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Now, hold on. This is what must be said to you.
Yes, sir.
It must be put in context of etymology.
Yes, sir.
Because our people psychologically keep trying to embrace it as an identity or try to justify having done so,
yes,
they're reluctant to release it and accept the truth about its history. Because they have been using it in the name of uplifting, when in fact they've been branding their own people. It must be understood that if it was purple, it has nothing to do what the tone is. It has to do with its application.
Yes, sir.
That once you take any being and brand them outside of their birth line, you've just robbed them. And if they don't know that, they need to know that. Which means if they called you purple people, if they called you light-skinned green people, the effect is the same. And the issue is in law, and it's not just here, all around the world. If you, that's collective you, are in the dishonor of your mothers and fathers, no one of the human family has any obligation to acknowledge you or to recognize you as part of humanity. In the principle of civilization, you must honor your mothers and fathers that your days may be longer upon the earthland. This is a political reality. However, although our people hear these statements, for the most part, they attribute them to some kind of religious idea and not understanding that it bleeds over into society at whole. And this is the issue of being like in the literature, the prophet's literature, in the questionnaire, you'll see the prophet said, how did the prophet begin to uplift the Moorish Americans? What's the answer?
I teach you to be
By
yourself.
teaching them to be themselves. Now, it's so basic, it's very elemental, isn't it?
Yes.
Just, you know, it's unimposing. It's interesting, but on the surface, you wouldn't necessarily think like deep, but it's deep. Now, also, he would say to you, if you don't believe that the program that I have for the redemption of my people and citizens is correct, go to those who know law. Now, when you take the structures that he's given you and take it to law, one being oneself is called in propria persona.
Yes.
This is where the work that would be done in a school, like you're doing, in groups, that's what your schools do. You take it to the next degree. Something is given in what you call the outreach. So the temple is like an outreach institution. You will take the information in your study groups and take it to its scholar degrees, and then take it to its added degrees. Now, logically, someone who's coming in, you know, when they see it, oh, that's tight, and they're interesting, you know, but it'll take them a minute to know that that's not where they're to be left. No different than if you go to an average school, right? You go to a school, first grade, you know, I remember my mom took me to Whittier School. She tricked me, right? I had these little Buster Brown shoes and stuff like that. My mom give this little cup of water, brush my hair and stuff like that. Make a little curly thing up here. Brush my hair, water, make a little curly thing, put my Buster Brown cap on, had little shorts. Took me to school, I was it. You know what I mean? Mom took me to school, I was chilling. So I turned around and found out she wasn't there. Should have done that. Anyway, so I hooked you the first day. I found my way home some kind of hound. You let me, my mom let me, I was upset. I was impressed first with school and all the children, till I discovered she left. Tricked me. Anyway, but when you go to school, you may be impressed at first, second, third grade, you're having fun, you're doing your thing. But then you get a little older, you go to elementary school. For the most part, people in general, don't look at school structure as being based on the zodiac all the year. But if you study history, you see a structure, even the gradient pockets, you see it's based on astrology, which is the culture of the planet. However, they would never tell you that. You understand? Likewise, right now, you know, like I remember my first grade teacher, you know, Miss Chase. I remember just like it was yesterday. You know, I'm old now. It's still fresh to me. You know what I mean? But I'm not, and I know she's not around, but I'm not like fired up to go see Miss Chase to prove that 2 and 2 is 4 anymore. But I appreciate it now, but I'm not like, you know what we really got to do? We got to go back to grade school and talk to the teachers and prove to everybody that 2, hold on, are you feeling it? Can you hear me? That 2 and 2 is 4. And everybody goes, hallelujah, and people do that. But however, you already know that's childish. And so it is with us. Certain things we've accepted as norm. Civilized people look at us and say, boys and girls.
The last thing I want you to look at.
Yeah, go ahead.
My last question is.
Yeah.
Because what we're learning is that you put the symbol of an atom, ATOM, on the board, and we recognize an atom as one of the particles.
Of course, you go back down below and go to quark.
Okay.
You can go lower than that.
Yes, sir. But the point of the matter is, we don't see the atoms that are before us.
Exactly.
And
we talk in abstracts.
We reference that as black energy. So
I didn't know.
Yes, sir. So what happens over time is that if all things come out of black energy, those things that take on form become black matter. So when we reference black and we say it only came around,
I know.
it kind of throws me a little
No,
bit. So
I
that's what I wanted
understand
to
it
address.
now. All right, let me
Yes, sir.
explain to you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
All right, now, this is what happens. And it's not totally wrong.
Yes, sir.
Now, you're putting a negative when it's not a negative.
Okay.
Etymological, it's misplacement
Yes,
and
sir.
misrepresentation that creates the damage, not the word.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, let's go further in the etymology. Great opportunity.
Thank you, brother.
Then as soon as you do this, go to the ME, then you're going to see derived, D-E-R. Right? Right?
Yes.
And then you're going to see this. Now, what's that?
Old High German.
An Old High German. And then you'll discover that this means pale. Doesn't even mean what you even think it means. So all you need to do is take the science and place the word. And so now, so everything comes from pale matter. No, yes, yes, yes.
Oh, yes, sir.
No, I'm showing you how to read. I'm showing you why we've been deceived. It doesn't make it wrong. Your concepts of how you think you're seeing things is blind. It's misconceived. It is not. Translation, you're living in an illusion.
That's right.
How about let's go to the next elevator and see how deep the rabbit hole goes. And it's uncomfortable because our people have been trained in certain concepts with language without understanding the language. There's assumptions. This is the point that I'm making to you. We assume things mean one thing until you know how the scholar who writes these things really knows what he's doing. He's doing social engineering. It's called, tell me what this is, symboliography.
Symboliography.
Tell me what it is and tell me how it's used.
Okay. Symboliography is symbolism that's used.
No,
historically.
symboliography.
Symboliography?
Yeah.
Symbolism used to tell us.
No.
Okay.
No. You
Okay.
going to something else.
Correct me, brother.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
Here.
Oh, yeah.
Study of symbolism?
It would end in ology.
Yeah,
Ology.
okay. I already go out here.
Now, that's what I'm asking. I'm not asking you about symbolism. I'm asking you what this means. See, because if you're holding classes and you're dealing with social engineering, you must know this because this is part of what's being done.
Break it.
All right. This is the art and the cunning of drafting documents, wills, instruments, language, translators, etc. Anybody that deals with translating things, dealing with writings, etc., the art of presenting things to you, whether wills, documents, mortgages, and stuff like that. The reason why people keep losing is because they keep dealing with these words from an emotional, Afrocentric perspective without understanding language, not knowing that they're being engineered, because they don't believe they're being engineered. Those persons who do that engineering that causes this confusion come under this category, symboliographers. Doesn't make it negative, it's the art and the cunning of drafting documents. Now, the deal of this, you must know that because part of what we're doing is we're breaking the mystery of this thing to get us out of the mysticism of these things. What happens is, like yourself, honestly and with honor, you're looking at anything and you should question everything. You're looking at everything to try to maintain its integrity of what you know or is taught that may have association with other things, but at the same time doesn't make it right.
Yes, sir.
It's a misclassification, a misuse in the language, which causes, because keep this in mind, culture is in the language. Our people are not at a disadvantage accidentally. It is because of the very thing that I'm demonstrating to you now, which I was giving him an added degree, and it's just that because of the question you asked, I took it to this next degree of the original thing that I kept actually simple. But yet that simplicity wasn't simple to the average person who's not educated. But then, if you're a scholar, you already know this. So I'm making sure you got that degree. Do you understand? So that you can be more useful in what you're doing. Because what happens is still puts you at a disadvantage, even though the intention is well. You understand? So what you do, when you're looking at any instruments, or you're breaking down, say, mortgages, deeds, contracts, and stuff like this, what an etymologist or symboliographer does, they do the etymology and they take all primal words, which means all words that are primal or subject within the structure, and they take it to its etymon, and then they read it. Why do you think that most people, when they really get in trouble, they need lawyers? Because they want to deal with the science. Because they know that the masses don't read. Can't read. They think that nice, oh, you're a nice guy. Oh, thank you so very much. You're stupid. That's what just called you. You don't know that because, you don't know the language. And I'm saying that just as an interim to explain to you the purpose of me making the argument. However, on the surface, with the assumption that black is this, the assumption.
That's right.
And it's not. Do you understand? That's ebony. Noir. You might say black like in French, noir. Or negro in Latin. But it still means burnt, ash, pale. Because it actually comes from the Paleolithic man. Middle English, the Paleo is in reference actually to the caveman. And like the scientific name for the black chimpanzee monkey is troglodyte nigger. The scientific name for the caveman is troglodyte nigger. They both have the same scientific name, but our people think they're niggers. When it's really the European caveman. They've traded places and we've adopted. Now, you understand why you even see some of the scientists wrote the book, one of the scientists wrote the book, a social scientist, The Negro, the Beast. Because it is. And then our people want to march.
Don't call me no beast, because we're going to march and protest.
Well, that means black chimpanzee monkey. So do human rights apply to black chimpanzee monkeys? And you got people sitting around calling themselves black chimpanzee monkeys just because they don't understand language and wonder why they ain't got no rights. Because they themselves are saying they're not part of the human family. So no niggers allowed, no monkeys allowed. You understand what I'm saying? And so if we out there protesting, then you must be a monkey. Do you understand? They mock us in our faces, but we're so arrogant with our ignorance that we keep trying to defend language that we've adopted that has nothing to do with truth. We refuse to recognize that we've been engineered. Because we just keep thinking that because we know Jesus, God, and all that, we're superior. We're dummies. That's why nobody respects us. And then we take that arrogance upon the civilized world and try to impose it upon them. You see, with the divine warning by the prosperous nation, we keep trying to take this arrogant, dumb position, the life we live, and try to impose it on a civilized world, get rejected, and then call them racism. Racism. Race is the human species. It's not an attitude. However, it's used as an attitude now, you must know that that's connotative application. It's not denotative. So if you're going to make a legal argument, you got to clean that up, because you ain't slaveness, because you're not a Slovakian, so you can't be a slave. However, you could be a bound free man.
Teach.
But if you don't know, in a legal argument, you lose. If you argue slavery that way. However, the argument would be presented to you as slavery. You see what I'm saying? Connotatively. And the deal is that we're trying to clean those nuances up with us because we're trying to fix this thing. Do you understand? But we already know that when people have certain levels of information, they're going to defend what they know, what they've been exposed to. What etymology does is it exposes everybody. Because this is the art of language across the planet. It's not, our opinion, it's like our people say, well, I don't know what that really means, but ebonically, we can make it mean what we want it to mean. So ebonically, Egypt means black. Ebonically, Hotep means black. And ebonically, Ma means black.
Idios means black.
But they're, in their mind, they're thinking dark skin. That's the mental. That's the mental. Because remember, it's the grooming of getting people to start calling people or measuring them by colors, not knowing it's a code system. Human beings are not colors. They are what? Nationalities. But once you agree to the color game, you're now in the caste system by agreement. It's called consent. And then when they treat you according to the code, now we pissed. What's called the Christian Black Code of 1724 that was adopted in all the states to control persons of Asiatic African descent, particularly Moors, who were put in Christian slavery, who are sometimes referred to as Moriscos and Moranos. Moriscos are Moors who were Muslims, Moranos are the Moors who were Yahudi, or what you call Jew, who were forced into what they're under to worship the popes of Rome, pretending to love Jesus.
Now they named them after cars.
Under the Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed, which is called Christianity. And that's a problem. And you can't tell them nothing. Islam, Gracie.
It's wisdom from the higher plane you're speaking right now, because Brother Taj, I hope y'all are just listening to this, because he's giving out these degrees. And I'm here decorated with this adept on me, but you get it for free. I had to sit and like he's saying, man, you know, the etymology is very important. I got a study group where Moors are outside of the chambers, and we're sitting here going through this whole, we're going through, like you said earlier, just real quick, because I have to tour tomorrow, so I wanted to say this real quick. It's not really a question, but a comment. That when he was talking about part and parcel, Noble Drew Ali never did anything or wrote anything unless he was talking about straight law.
Yes,
So
sir.
every
He's
word,
a lawman.
yeah, he was a lawman, straight out. So when he said part and parcel, if we look up in the Black's Law, what part and parcel, you know, actually references to, it has two different meanings. The ones that, and this is a trip, because like he was telling earlier about how those people who are in high positions are corrupting the science.
Yes.
Now, they have changed the bylaws and put parcel.
Partial, parcel means land.
Be parceled out. Yeah, like to take part of it.
Parcel in law is a specifically identified section of land.
Yes, sir.
L-A-N-D. Partial has to do with attitude.
That's right, that's right.
When you go into the microfilm in Chicago, go into the microfilm, and with the Divine Constitutional Bylaw, Moorish Holy Temple of Science, it says parcel in 4 and 7 and 3 parts. After the Moorish Science Temple of America came on the scene when Drew Ali was battling with the internal battles, they changed the Constitution to partial. You cannot alter a constitution of any order without having what? A constitutional convention.
That's right.
Exactly correct.
It's not, but I just wanted to say, it's like I said, it's a comment, man. I hope y'all are really grabbing these jewels, man, because, and you've seen, Brother Taj, when we go to events or whatever like that, with Temple 11, how that they are coming at me and they're trying to get me to learn these degrees. And it's so humbling that you're giving these degrees out, you know, because it's a hard thing to get this information. Like you said, Masons, secret societies, esoteric report, they know this information.
Yes, it's your stuff.
So
you know, it's look this, Gracie. Look like this, Gracie. Prophet Noble Drew Ali brought this information 100 years ago. Going 101 years. There is no excuse for any Moorish American in North America not being familiar with degrees that all of these people who've been running their lives know. The so-called Europeans, and even to all of the adepts and all of the different ministers in the different so-called black movements. You know, no different than, you know, you can take any, like say for instance, if I need a tassel, right? If I want a tassel with 360 strands, right? Representing the 360 degrees, which would be rare, I'd have to order it, right?
Yes, sir.
Because you already know, basically, the standard tassels that they're giving you not going to have 360 strands because it's heavy.
Yes, sir.
It's big, you know, cost more. However, meaning, it has meaning, right? Now, am I going to go to the masjid and get my fez, or am I going to go to some so-called Jew and get my fez. And why? Why would that be? Why would I have to go to some so-called Jew to get a tassel to my fez instead of going to the mosque to get a tassel to my fez? Because that imam ain't gonna let them people get them degrees. That's why. I ain't gonna argue about it, I already know it, so it's a waste of time. But at the same time, they'll be trying to tell you who's real Muslim, who ain't. Not even know that Muslim is a fetus. Do you understand? Everybody's Muslim. Do you understand? Do you understand what I'm saying to you? This is why, like say for instance, you know, like Europeans, this is why you see like Europeans, even though they front with people in secret, they got Korans. The Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan got a Koran.
We got one right here.
All right.
Islam. Back to the question of black.
Yeah.
The Kabbalists will tell you that everything in the universe is carbon based.
Yeah.
So that's
carbon. And they'll say now, but now the deal of it is because of association. Remember, much of what we take as education is by association. Association can also, and more than likely, means connotation. It is not exact. It is assumed. And I'm trying to tell you, I can't tell you strongly enough, the distinction between the masters and the believers is the subtleties that I'm telling you. I'm not even telling you to accept it. I'm telling you to prove it wrong. And in doing so, you will educate yourself and the argument is over. But until you walk the walk, you will have not the light. In other words, the problem that we have, again, and why this thing is so strong, is because people defend their ignorance, because they don't know the rules by which to measure. It's not that they are ignorant. Ignorance is only a lack of information, and the people are destroyed by the day for a lack of knowledge. And you bring them knowledge, and it competes with their beliefs. They dismiss it because they've been trained that beliefs is the arrival degree, when belief is really the first level degree. This is the symbols like in ancient Kemet, ancient Yucatan, and it's the same culture. They have an old Lemurian altar that's shaped just like a Kaaba. It's a cube. And it'll be dressed elaborately. And they'll have 3 candles around it. Third rock from the sun, the earth, 3 degrees, 3 dimensions. The triangle, pyramid. Get the whole point? Each one of them, of the triangle, is what? 120 degrees still equals 360. So you got the square, the circle, and the pyramid. It's still 360 degrees if you understand it. There's your compass and your square, your carpenter's tools. They say what? Jesus was a carpenter. Jesus was a mason. You got to understand what they're really trying to tell you. Justice is masonry. Do you get the point? There's science of the earth, of the planet. It's Islam, but it's not just a creed. It's I, self, law, and master. There's 1 degree for the rulers and 1 degree for the masses who pay the bills. The issues of Prophet Muhammad, as you might say, the mysticism of him, or Dwali or anyone else, is to get the masses from the beggar degree, that they don't know they're in. That's why, who do you think always kills the prophets? It's the priesthood. Why? Because it's a threat to them, because they're taking advantage of the people. That's why this stuff may sound odd, because it's not expected. And then logically, those who have the degrees can teach someone or set up little organizations, and they can only tell you or will tell you what they want you to know until you rise yourself. That's why a lot of times, even in the rituals, just to show you how the stuff works, they'll have, like brothers, your friends, introducing you as a candidate, and then they beat your ass. Which means don't trust them. Which means study. Walk the walk. That's why they call it a narrow path, because when you start find out what the real truths are, it's kind of uncomfortable, because it goes against what you thought you knew. What is not what you knew is what you were told. Now you understand the lesson Drew Ali said, man knows not by being told. Barabbas. What it means is study. Just study well. And when you would have studied well and would ask me what to study next, I would reply, study yourselves. Once you do, this stuff, everything that you thought you knew, will start showing illusion after illusion after illusion. Don't get angry, take that energy and start baptizing. That's cleaning yourself up. This is why, like, you read the Bible, even though it's been tampered with, it says the people will be born again, what? With a new mind. They're not coming out of a womb, they're coming out with a new mind. But there's very few institutions that will really carry out that mission. Why? Because there is what? Profit in servitude. There's very little profit for the truth. And so you have a lot of prophets out there, they're profiting, and then you have some prophets that's just giving the wheel. So if they give you the wheel, then what they do, they make a priest out of it. And then you don't need the middleman. You don't need them either. You get the whole point? That's what Drali came for, to make you priests unto yourselves. And some people just don't get that, because that's not what they're used to. They're always looking for some hook line of belief. And it's not what this information is about. You see? And so you take a symbol, say the first candlestick, beneath the candlestick it'll be belief. Behind it will be neophyte. In front of the second candlelight will be faith. Behind it will be scholar. The third candlelight will be what? Fruition. Behind it will be master. All your imams, your priests, your rabbis, your master masons, skull and bones, Knights Columbus, Knights Templars, Daughters of American Revolution get their master's degree on the third light. It's called the Trinity light. You see? The triune, you hear the term triune Allah. You know, and so all of these things have multiple meanings. But the multiple meanings are never given to the masses. They're given one meaning to keep them divided to each other. You know, just like, say, for instance, give you a perfect example. Circumambulation. You know what circumambulation is, right? All right. Circumambulation is the ritual that we make when we make the Hajj. And we make 7 counterclockwise circles around the cube Kaaba. That's circumambulation. All right? Each one of those circles represent one of the ruling planets in this particular solar system, which is called Eloah. Collectively, the 7 Eloah is called Elim. Allah, Alim, Elim. You understand? Now, it's cosmogony. The meteorite in the corner within the Kaaba is representing the outside world. Or like you might see in ancient Lemuria, ancient Pan, etc., upper world, underworld. You'll see the squares in lodges where you take the black squares and the white squares, cubits, right? Star set. Do you understand? The darkness, the light. And then all of the secondary orders, like that are called dogmas, you know, which the people are told is religion, it's dogmas. That's what keeps them under control. They'll say, Amen, but the priesthood will say, Amen Ra. And then the people in the orders will say, ain't into that Rasta. As if it's not the origin. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And most of them don't even know the origin. And don't even know Ra is the sun. Do you get the whole point? And they're saying, the Son of God. And the priesthood would say, yeah, Son of God, S-U-N. The masters say, Son of God, S-O-N. But the very priest who teaches them that knows better for himself and herself.
So Taj, is that like when you hear the Arabic and they say Rahman, Rahim,
yes.
You know that Ra, and then they close and the prayer with Amin.
Yeah.
They're still invoking the tones of
Yeah.
Ra and Amin.
Yes, exactly.
But not just linking it to its historical origin.
Yes, and see when you, and I'm always talking plurally, know to take it out of the emotionalism to look at these figures that they show, you know, of like say Ma'at and the pharaohs, etc., you know, taught and etc. You know that these are symbols of energies and powers and not necessarily actual personalities. Like where the masses, you know, they all in all kind of mental strain. Don't paint no picture of Muhammad, that's shirk, right? When the Imam knew that Muhammad is really the upper and lower hemisphere of the universe. I'm just showing you what's really going on from a priest degree. And so the masses are sitting around there arguing different versions of the prophet and arguing hadith and killing each other
You got the upper
and
ministry,
oppressing women
and the outer ministries of the Lord.
and then calling that Islam. 2 degrees above a beast. Do you understand what I'm saying? Why do you think they ran Prophet Muhammad out? Because they didn't want it. And they're the ones who tell you what Islam is now and what it is not. And so the deal is you're not going to argue with them. Why? Because they're not going to show you love, they're going to show you death. What's that got to do with love? What's that got to do with trying to uplift all the humanity when they always think about injuring people? Hating women whose womb you come from. Do you understand what I'm saying? And you calling that divine, please? You know, I mean, but people do that. Now, telling that truth can also get you injured. But isn't that the truth? But how many people know the truth and then turn around and deny it because we're part of a club? Trying to defend the club. And humanity suffers. Do you understand what I'm saying? The truth of the matter is, some things that are presented as religion are not really religion. They're customs of local people that have nothing to do with divine law. It has everything to do with local customs and crap that they do and their insecurities that they impose on other human beings. In the name of Allah, or in the name of Jesus, in the name of gods and stuff like that. Most of which change when their versions of understanding change. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Islam.
I wanted to set brother ask this question, then we're going to take a brief break so, you know, brothers and sisters can get some,
Islam, good brother.
some good treats.
Good seeing you again. Good too, good brother.
Islam.
Islam.
Isn't the Holy Grail, isn't that the man and the woman? Could you like maybe explain the science or behind that?
Well, the Holy Grail is multiple levels. The Holy Grail is the knowledge of Aleph Beth. Like say for instance, Holy Grail is this. We can expand on this, and any one of you who may be, you know, in the master's degrees can add to this or give other information, and that would be referred to as the Holy Grail. Another point would be referred to as the Holy Grail would be your access to your lost estate. Another issue would be Holy Grail would be you learning the highest of Masonic secrets. That the Great Seal that Martin Luther King talked about is the insignia of the Moorish nation, and that you're home and that you're refugees in your own house. Which he made those statements, but he didn't tell you what that Great Seal was. He just said, I've been to the mountaintop and I've seen the Promised Land, giving you verbally the Great Seal, which now is a threat to the Don. You can't threaten the Don that you've been serving because you can't serve 2 masters. So he had to go. Temple of Solomon, you get the point? But if you don't know what you're looking at, you don't know what you're looking at. And so the Holy Grail, for the most part, can mean the most deepest of secrets. It can be the return of your birthright, the Holy Grail. It's also like the one who stands at the gate holding the secrets, or holding you from them. You know, Aleph Beth. Aleph, first letter of the Kabbalistic Aleph Beth, or alphabet, right? Beth is the mother, father. Elohim, Allah, Elim, Alain, mother, father, right? And so when people go into the books, they don't know that when you call into the genes of Isis, Genesis, do you understand? They are not looking at it from the issue of the energies of the universe that creates all things and that governs the womb of woman, which is represented by the Ankh, which is the real first Holy Cross. Those fallopian tubes left and right, uterus, birth canal. Do you understand? The science of it, which is why that sistrum is used as a symbol of government on the earth, which means the government of the earth is a matriarchy, not a patriarchy. However, can people handle that truth? So that's the Holy Grail. So when you look at Elohim, like you can go to most of the houses of so-called worship and say Elohim means God. No one will dispute that, will they? However, you tell them same people who agree with that Elohim means mother, father, and then they'll start debating you with their beliefs. But that's exactly what it means, and all the priesthood knows that. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Most of them will take it as singular when Elohim is plural. The priesthood knows that, but the masses don't know that. That's the Holy Grail. It is the knowledge of the truth. And that grail, and it's sort of like it symbolizes that someone's in possession of it that should not be, or dishonorably in possession of it, and you got to get it from them. It's sort of like the David and Goliath story. You know, David, Goliath going around and kicking people's butt, right? Everybody talking about they're going to get together and jump them. Right, so everybody gets together, armies and stuff, they're going to jump G. So everybody gets going to jump G, they get closer and closer, and they see this big shadow, and they say, something was shining a little while ago. You know, and they get a little closer, and damn. G kind of big, right? And so all the boys be leaving, right? You start feeling breezes and stuff, yeah. I'm like, dang, cell phone. See my mom. Lunchtime. You know, everybody, you see G's kind of big. Now Dawood was by the stream, and it was a stream of water, and he wasn't impressed. Everybody was impressed. They was going to kick G's butt. So Dawood wasn't impressed. Dawood dipped into the water, the stream. Now the stream, the water, now you're dealing with the elements, you see. Now this is what the Adams know. He's dealing with the elements. The water represents the element of water, also represents wisdom, also represents the most, what you call the heaviest of the major four elements, right? And yet not so stable, you see. Even when you move it, you got to put it in chambers so it don't turn things over. You get the whole point? Then he picked up 5 smooth stones. That's 5 principles of Islam. I something law and master. You understand? You understand the lower tail that the people call Satan is really simply the chakras that you must overcome. Because you already know that once you really understand the science of true religion, that you must slay the personality, which is why most people will submit to Satan, which is the tail. It's not really a being. So the chakras either grow up and activate the pineal gland, which is the Christ degree, or they go down and you gratify your lower self, which is why we fell. So you must know the science of the 7. These 7 layers of the body, right? That's the Holy Grail, isn't it? You know, and so you must understand that these different things, and so you already know that the Eloah is represented by 7 golden candlesticks that you will also see in the book of Revelation of the Bible. And yet, when you look at the people, if you deal with people that are caught into what they think they got religion, you see Muslims making the Hajj might think they're superior to the Christians who's looking at the 7 candlesticks in the book of Revelation. Or the brothers doing the Afrocentricity with the 7 wooden candlesticks. But yet the priests know all of them represent the 7 planets. But the leader guys will assign different meanings to the candlesticks that originally don't apply to them. Doesn't mean they didn't think of some good things. You know what I mean? They'll start making up mojo things. And sounding Afrocentric is really deep and inspires people, but it's not the truth. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? As an example, let me give you what priests know. And this is short. This is all short as an example, but should, to some degree, relieve some of the mystery. And again, as I said before, and I'll say now, which is why some of the stuff that we do, like. We used to give this out years ago in the Roundtable because you got to kill the spookism to people so they can receive this information because they're spooked up. So these are the holy names of the Eloah, right? Now the Eloah is Hebrew for singular, right? And Elohim is the 7 Eloah in unity, which is represented also by the menorah where you see that 7 candlestick, that golden candlestick, or sometimes they'll do it in silver, which is the alchemical metal of the moon, and the gold is the alchemical metal of the sun, which is why you have money is gold and silver coin. All of this is cosmogony, which is the science of the planet Earth, which is the truth of religion. And you already know what I just now told you is not taught in them houses. So let's not even go there. But yet these people will sit and debate you with their so-called religion when the priesthood gave that to them. And they'll argue this information when all their priesthood and imam got this information for their degrees. They just ain't telling. You see the whole point? Huh? And so the people who are mistaught will argue with those who know. Thank you. I need that too. The holy names of the Elohim, the 7 days. This also represents with the 7 days. And this is also the power of 7 that's used all the time in our rituals, in religion. When we make the Hajj, these are the 7 planets. 7 golden candlesticks. There you go. So, Sunday is the first day of the week. It is ruled by the sun. And the holy name of Sunday is Michael. So when you see Michael in the Bible, they're talking about the sun.
And what the angel and the devil is messing with.
You know, do you understand? Now the priest knows that it's the sun. The believers,
It's the angel. You know the one the angel had, he had the puffs right here, his hair like this. And he painted his beard blue. Paint your beard blue too, so you can be like him. And our people do that kind of stuff. And it's fiction. It's telling you stories, but it's powers. Do you understand? So Michael is the holy name of the sun, so all imams know that. And we have other names to them, but I'm giving you the basics. Right? So all imams know that, all rabbis know that, all priests know that, all master masons know that, all sheiks know that. How come the believers don't know this stuff? Because they never given these degrees. They're there to pay the bills. Do you understand? Tithes, tax, 10% Roman tax, that's just what it means. 2, Monday is the 2nd day of the week. It is ruled by the moon. Now keep in mind, each one of these candlesticks and each one of the circles made around the Kaaba represents each one of these planets. Monday is the 2nd day of the week. It is ruled by the moon. The holy name of Monday is Gabriel. Tuesday is the 3rd day of the week. It is ruled by Mars. The holy name of Tuesday is Samael. Wednesday is the 4th day of the week. It is ruled by Mercury. The holy name of Wednesday is Raphael. Thursday is the 5th day of the week. It is ruled by Jupiter. The holy name of Thursday is Sakael. See the eel? See where eel come from? Il. And Elohim. You see? Friday is the 6th day of the week. It is ruled by Venus. And the holy name of Friday is Anael. Now, so Friday is the holy day for Muslims all around the world. Now you see the star, the green star, that represents Venus. And see why all the Moors used to cap their buildings are composed with copper or gold. And then when the elements of air and water hit that, it turns a patina green. Now you understand why they did the Liberty with the 7 spires, and they took an iron frame and capped her in copper and put her in the Bay of New York for the conquest of the Corsairs, which is the Moors. You gotta know history. They're talking to you. So Saturday is the 7th day of the week and is ruled by Saturn. The holy name of Saturday is Kasael. A day is that period of sunlight between dawn and nightfall, and is that time or interval existing from sunrise to sunset. Holy is derived from the ancient Sanskrit word hali. See what's important? This is etymology. Do you understand what's important? So you got to know origins. Which means whole and sun, S-U-N. A week is that period of measurement of 7 successive days. The word day is derived from the word degree and relates to the 24-hour period during which the earth completes a full rotation upon its axis. And this is called a solar day. And the 7 days philosophically have holy names and are ruled or governed by major 7 stars or 7 planets in our solar system. And these attributes of holy names have been passed down to us from our ancient foremothers and forefathers in harmony with the divine order of nature, and each singular day is called an Eloah. And the 7 days or 7 stars together as one are called Elohim, expressive of the mother-father principle, and applies to the 7 singular Eloah in their plural form and their cyclical oneness. This is where they get monotheism from. You see? You know the one God theory? You see the point? Now, the ancient cosmos sciences involving 7 days have been traditionally taught to neophytes and scholars alike, and are represented in the circumambulate heaven symbolisms, being a part of the ancient and modern mystical schools of higher learning. And the same philosophy is infused within the religious rituals and ceremonies characterized by many, or by way of the symbolic displays of 7 golden candlesticks. And the same is traditionally expressed by the circumambulation rituals, which are demonstrable of the ritual or the various religious Asiatic African cultures. Eloah is derived from the ancient Moabite Hebrew word El, which has been presented to the natural peoples of the earth as God. And the Hebrew Ibri names El and Eloah are synonyms and are singularly relative by fact and definition. Now that's simplistic. It's more, but that's simple to give an average person who don't have these degrees, take them to the priest degree, so you don't have to keep arguing with them, because they're going to argue with you and say, you don't know God. They don't even know that God is not even a noun. It's a verb translated. You know, so even when they talk about the great ancient gods of Egypt, that word don't even go back to the 4th century. Is that 4th century, Dooley? God in its form, in its morphed form, is derived from Germanic.
That's modern English.
Yeah, modern English. Modern English, and it's come from Got, good. Yeah, 1500s. And so the deal is not even ancient. And so when you talk about the ancient gods of Egypt, again, you're lying again. You know, because if you're going to talk about even from which that derived, and somebody says you Kodam and Uda, and you don't recognize it, then how are you going to talk about God when you don't even know the root? You see the point? You get the point where I'm coming from? And so I'm trying to show you and demonstrate that the priesthood has a degree and the masses have a degree. And their degree is heavily neutered. But because they think they know, they defend their position thinking that they're being honorable when they actually been played. Like a violin with no strings. And it's the truth, and it's unfortunate. And so what happens is when people get good hearts and try to raise their people, and they just keep going like it's on a treadmill, wonder why they're not raising the people. They keep having meetings and rallies, and not only does the situation stay the same, sometimes it gets worse. It's because they don't know the rules. It's sort of like, you know, like us getting all fired up, you know. I'm so glad we came here, Sister Nyla. She hooked us up with some food and everything. When we leave here, we catch the bus going down to AC, and we're going to come back with a Corvette and everything. Everybody put your finance up, and we're going to AC. Then we go to AC, right? And everybody be walking home. We're going to pass this around. And those who want, you keep it. I got a couple of them, not many of them, but that'll give you a little bit. But keep in mind the major issue that we're doing, you know, in our whole conversation tonight is trying to kill the mystery, and it has to do more or less with the new brothers. You know what I mean? Some of you know, and then even some of the brothers that have been around, because at the same time, some of the information historically is very well grounded, but the philosophies behind it is often distorted, and so it creates confusion and keeps divisions, and that's another way to keep people divided. Keep that in mind. Huh?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Huh? False alarm, false alarm. False alarm? What? Thank you. Oh, false alarm.